So, welcome everyone to the NanoCon, as we call it since this event. It used to be called simply Origami Lab meetup. We decided to call it now NanoCon. NanoCon stands for the shortness and the quickness of it. So it's not a full day conference. It's a lightweight event where we try to present the initiative every time we host the conference, and most importantly, bring an interesting topic, interesting initiative, or group of people to you, so you can get to know the problem statement. You can get to know what is actually happening and hear it firsthand from the people. So, welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for joining. As you heard already, this session is recorded. Due to the GDPR compliance rules, we have to announce it. And if someone is against it and you ended up being recording in the beginning, just let me or Alexandra know. You can find our contact details at the end of the presentation. We will share it as well. We then, I don't know, put some black box on your face, and then we should be good. So, my name is Victor Andreas. I'm going to be your co-moderator today. Alexandra is moderating usually the whole session, and as soon as she's done with updating the people, we will switch roles again. Most important is, and you probably already got used to it during the Corona time, mute the microphone. We don't want to hear anyone doing anything specific, right? So pay attention. You are visible and we can hear you. So if you can mute yourself, that would be great. You can ask questions on the chat. We're going to pick them up, and then during the Q&A, go through them. You're more than welcome to tweet out that you're participating right now, or also post it on LinkedIn. It helps the initiative and everyone else highlighting that you're doing something outside of the comfort zone, I would say. You're happy to use your camera during the virtual work environment. It's always important not just to see black screens, but also faces. Since we hardly meet anyone, even in real life, it's always good in virtual teams, or also just right now to see people smiling, right? So that's us. A quick look back on the past events for the ones that joined today the first time. The last two events have been visited by Milan Ilicevic, who is an AI researcher in the University of Amsterdam. He spoke about inclusive education and how modern day algorithmic approaches can be used to improve the learning environment of children with disabilities, particularly here affected by the Down syndrome. Was a very interesting talk, very interesting group of people. In the beginning, the first event was visited by Christian Kronsteder, who is here today with us as well. He was speaking about the too much data paradox. Was very much something that many people can relate to, and he spoke particularly about how this could be handled in a better way, also using machine learning and data science concepts or methods. It's pretty close actually to today's topic that we're going to hear from the ETH Library Lab, but more to come later, right? Today's agenda, we usually introduce a little bit the Origami Lab initiative itself, so you understand what's the context here for everyone who is new. Then we have the segment for the guest speaker. Today we're going to listen to the topic around information infrastructure and how it plays an important role. For the ones that are not familiar with this term, it's a bit and I was already warned that it's not Library 2.0, it's Library 4.0 in the meantime. But basically, the transformation of the way information is disintermediated, and how could the future of a library look like? Not necessarily a library, but itself, how information could flow in the future. And then we have a short interview taking place at the end of every session. So quickly on Origami Lab. I'll keep it short, a couple of minutes, hopefully. If you have follow-up questions, or if I'm rushing through something too quick, again, reach out to us, and we can even have a direct phone call or video conversation as long as you want it. Origami Lab is an open source and open knowledge initiative established in the collaboration with the University of Applied Sciences of Basel. One of the masterminds of it is also here with us, is Christian Kronsteder, always very actively supported by him as well. So thank you very much, Christoph, here. And hopefully we get even more people endorsing it, so it will be great. Main motivation of Origami Lab is to built a community around the topic of transformation in the area of technology, specifically in research and science. And here, due to the focus of the life science faculty that has been a founding member here in the beginning, we also particularly look into these topics as well, around drug development, pharmaceutical environment, and medical health, but always with the emphasis on technology and specifically on experimental technology. So here we can practice a bit and experiment what could go and what's possible. We want to be an ecosystem that partners with companies, scientists, entrepreneurs, research organizations, including startups as well, and any type of non-profit or open source initiative to reach that goal of really rethinking or let's say modernizing almost the current environment that scientists embedded in. We also have the ambition to not just have outcomes that require life support, but really grow and accelerate initiatives that have a value-adding component, which is then also maybe required by the industry or by anyone else around there, but then really justifies with the need that the initiative should survive, right? We don't want to, create something that lives off donations here or something that just, is based on goodwill. We really want to nurture something that adds value and for that has a market, right? And everyone is welcome. Yeah. On this note, no one is excluded. Reach out to us if you want to participate in any form. Here a little bit of an overview. What does it look like? And most important role of Origami Lab, the way we see it right now, is being a facilitator, a gateway, and an ecosystem of ideas, people, initiatives, connecting problems and individuals or organizations to work a bit in a, let's say, out of the box way on those topics and out of the, say, traditional environment where usually is not the best breeding ground for breakthrough ideas. Again, happy to welcome anyone here on this landscape. It's not some sort of exclusive club. Reach out to us. We can get in touch with you. For us, it's important that you align with your values with us. Your ambition and goal is aligned with our own here from Origami Lab. And that's the most important criteria. And then we're happy to welcome you. Community maintainers, as an overview. By now it's much more, but we always show it a little bit that you see there's actually real people behind it. Since the last meetup, we have a bit of progress. You can see it here. I put together a little bit of a community stats overview. We are advancing the Cobalt initiative step by step. It's a very ambitious goal, but we do the baby steps here. We have a couple of communities that joined in as well to the ecosystem. We have XHack from Germany. That's pretty cool innovation lab that focuses on hackathon organization. Pretty good what they do, pretty interesting with thinking to run a hackathon together. Ercilia is a non-profit open source initiative that is aiming to use AI to accelerate drug development. So it's pretty cool. And we continue with the outreach. We want to also point out how a contributor could look like by using the example of Christina, one of the most active members here. Thank you very much, Christina, for all the great work. And it's just a pleasure working with you. Honestly, you're a very great and bright individual. Here, what does it mean to be a member of the community, right? One is you join the groups, you join the events, but you're also welcome to signal it on your social media or LinkedIn that you are, let's say, either an employee or there's also a way of setting it as an, let's say, contributor, right? Like a volunteer. And you're happy to pick your own role title, whatever you want, you call yourself. It just has to resonate to what you actually do, right? Here, Christina is a lot helping the initiative with coordination, ideas contribution. It's really cool. I hope she also gets something back out of it in short or near term. So just to point this out. Thank you very much, Christina. And here I would then also move over now to our today's guest. Alexander, you want to make the introduction? I guess you're ready by now. Oh, probably.
Yeah, everything is all right. And
okay. You wanna take over?
Yeah. So I will. Yeah, take over.
Oh, looks like we have connection issues. All right, I'll jump in again. Alex, I think you have network issues. We have to know Alexandra is sitting now in one of the, let's say, exciting places in the negative terms in Belarus, Minsk, and the internet sometimes is being tampered with, so we never know when something might happen. Yeah, I would welcome today the Library Lab. It's an initiative rooted at the ETH of Zurich, one of the leading technical universities in the world. It's an honor to have you here today, speaking about the future of information infrastructure, speaking about how information can be, distributed and used in the future, and really give us an outlook forward, but also, as I understood, speak about a little bit on the hands-on initiatives that are taking place right now to reach the goal. So I would like to introduce you Maximiliane Okonnek, who is the managing director of the ETH Library Lab, and Barry Sunderland, who is a data scientist and an engineer, who is then really taking care of the details and technical questions around the initiatives. So welcome everyone, Maximiliane and Barry. Stage is yours. I would start sharing then, and really looking forward to the talk. And see you later at the interview.
Yeah, thank you very much, Victor, for the very kind introduction. We are actually extremely happy to be here today. I think we have a lot of things in common, Origami Labs and ETH Library Lab. First and foremost, I think we share a passion for triangle shapes by looking at our logos. This is the first one, but I think there is also a lot of other things to add to this, and I think that will also become clear across our presentation that we are actually a little bit of the same trajectory and focusing on similar challenges and similar topics. So I will start my presentation now. Just let me know in case something doesn't work. So switch here. Okay, so maybe let me give you a little bit of a brief overview of what our presentation is structured today. I will be responsible for the little bit more drier parts of the presentation, and Barry will focus a little bit on the more hands-on parts, which are the projects at our lab, and maybe also specific topics around these. But at the beginning, I will have a view on current trends and developments in higher education, and maybe a shortcut focus on scholarly communication and its constant change. And then I will introduce maybe ETH Library Lab to you, why it has been created and what its Innovator Fellowship is about. So that is how we are going to proceed from now. I will just check the time so that I don't lose track of it. Okay, so maybe when we are coming to the trends and developments in higher ed, from my perspective, I sometimes tend to divide this into maybe 4 aspects that are very relevant in the ecosystem of higher education, which is for terms of maybe also a little bit of simplification. I call them science, research, education, and society. What we can overall see is when we are looking at higher educational environments that new technologies, digitalization and data science practices have an increasingly strong influence on practices across scientific disciplines and are transforming the overall landscape of higher education. So, for instance, if we look at this aspect of science, as I would call it, and this overall topic of scientific communication or also scholarly communication, how it is most of the time called when you ask librarians, we see that through these new technologies and other challenges and changes, we have a shifting demands and standards and processes in scientific communication. And because this is in context flux, I think the challenge that arises from this is that we need to safeguard meaningful, equitable, and enduring access to scientific knowledge today already, but also in the future. And I think there are a lot of topics why this is relevant, but I think the most relevant topics and fields of actions are, of course, the overall cost of open science, which also Origami Labs is putting strong focus on, and also questions of quality management and transparency in scientific environments. When we look a little bit more on the side of like methods and tools and workflows for research and research activities, we can see, of course, that data-driven research approaches and the importance of AI technologies can be observed across all disciplines, which has been started out of STEM disciplines mostly, is now permeating almost throughout all scientific disciplines. We also see this development currently now in the humanities as well. And since these methods are now currently changing, there's also a stronger focus on building and maintaining data and information infrastructure for intermediate research outputs, because if we do not have open access to these intermediate research outputs, we will also not be able to replicate and maybe in best case reproduce scientific findings, and also collaboration is something that will be quite much hindered. And looking at the two other aspects I mentioned, there's also this aspect of education, which is, of course, one of the main role of higher educational institutions. And there we see like strongly evolving curricula, which means that the skills and methods taught to students at universities are shifting and changing. And we also see that machine learning approaches are also now like taught already at the bachelor level of a lot of scientific disciplines. And alongside this, we have experienced and observed shifting teaching modes in the last years, and I think accelerated especially in the last year. We see now a heavy mix between on-site teaching, remote teaching, and hybrid teaching, which I think the hybrid teaching forms will be also the ones which will be more prominent in the future. But alongside this, also a lot of different tools are used to enable these kind of shifting teaching modes. And I think maybe also one topic that sometimes gets a little bit forgotten is that there is like a rising expectation for university currently to also explain and play a more active role, societal role in society. There is, of course, a stronger push towards sustainability and also transfer. And for this, I think we also need to think about ways how to leverage new technologies and scientific resources for the public good and also for transfer into society. So this is like the major trends we are currently observing, and I think some of them will even be accelerating in the future. And to maybe also put a little bit more focus on one of the aspects that has been mentioned before, the topic of scholarly communication. I think this topic is quite interesting to have a look at, because we are always talking about challenges and new developments and new approaches and novel ways of doing things. And I think, especially in libraries, we are quite good in like questioning always if something that is called new is already new or is actually new. So maybe let me take a small detour here. So briefly, what is scholarly communication from a librarian's perspective? The American Library Association puts us like scholarly communication is the system through which research and other scholarly writings are created, evaluated for quality, disseminated to the scholarly community, and preserved for future use. So this is how you could very, very briefly describe it. And as we all observe that there are like strong developments are currently going on, we also sometimes tend to call them new. But if we look at it at a more broader horizon, we actually realize that shifts and paradigm shifts in scientific communication, or in general human communication and knowledge transfers, are nothing really new. It has happened several times before. So when we start looking back, the first ways of like sharing knowledge and information has been cave paintings, for instance, that had a very visual approach. And then a very big first paradigm shift in actually scholarly communication has been this overall debate whether oral or written scientific communication is superior, which has been like a topic between Plato, who was more for the oral transmission, and Aristotle, who promoted the written transmission. Then when we go down the line the centuries and come into the medieval ages, then the invention of the movable printing type press has certainly been the second paradigm shift in scholarly communication. where it was able to transmit and contribute and provide scientific research outputs and information and knowledge to a much larger audience. And then if we move further down to the 20th century and its 80s and 90s with the first computers and an increasing use of digital tools for conducting research, but also disseminating research outputs and knowledge. There we also see a big shift towards digital forms of scholarly communication. And this is also, I think, been the starting point of the growing monopoles of scientific publishers, which started to grow into like huge, large ecosystems, which are trying to cover the overall research life cycle and tools alongside this. And what we are currently now observing is that even research articles and the way they are produced and the time it takes until they are actually published become too long for some scientific disciplines. And this is why intermediate research outputs are much more in the focus now. And also people think increasingly about how to accelerate dissemination of these outputs to have faster collaboration and faster research. I think the last year has been an incredible experience in this regard, since we have experienced what power collaboration also can have in scientific progress. I think these Corona times have put a very strong case for how important this actually is. So there you can see that what we call a new development is actually an evolution of something that is very long going on. So the term of using new here might be questioned in a way. And also maybe if we approach a different topic that is also strongly related to the topic of open science. Here you have a quote from the European Commission that says open science represents a new approach to the scientific process based on cooperative work and new ways of diffusing knowledge by using digital technologies and new collaborative tools. So the question is this really a new approach? Or is just the means of doing it a new approach? Because if you're really looking closely also at publications, you can find this idea of open science already back in the 19th century, as in these books by a British scientist on the decline of science in England and some of its causes. And he already expressed in the 18th and 30s this idea of open science, and that it is very crucial to have proper collaboration and accelerate scientific findings. So when we maybe critically ask if this term of being something new is turned out to be a little bit relative, so maybe we would like to answer the question, what is actually new for us currently right now? And I think this question has been answered many times. I think what really is new through digitalization is that almost all actions along the research lifecycle, they create data points. And what that means is that the whole value creation chain of scientists and researchers becomes very visible, that becomes more tangible, understandable, and therefore also the threats and barriers that are inherent in this overall workflow become more visible and understandable. And this is something which I find very interesting because if you are looking at the market around scholarly communication, you can really see something that is also true in other environments. Wherever there are threats and barriers, there's also market opportunity. And this is exactly what happens in the research environment. And that's the reason why I think this study that has been conducted by two librarians from the Utrecht University Library in the Netherlands is something very insightful that has been conducted 4 years ago or 5 years ago. And what they did is actually they asked researchers and scientists across disciplines, across university, across continents, what kind of research tools they are using alongside their research life cycle. They asked over 25,000 scientists and collected all their answers. And this is just a small fraction of the big Excel file that has been the result, and that showed actually what kind of research tools are used and what kind of like workflows or tool stacks are used by researchers. And I think this study really shows in a very good way how there is an explosion of actual providers of tools and helpful solutions in order to mitigate those barriers and also frictions along the research life cycle. But the thing that happens with these kinds of development is, unfortunately, that it causes new barriers, because if there are so many different solutions in the market, you have also siloed information again, and also, again, like a huge fragmentation of all the things you actually want to come more closer together. I think this comic here puts this very, very nicely when it focuses on standards and not so much on tools, but I think this is exactly what happens. So I think for initiatives like ETH Library Lab, also origamilab, and many other initiatives around the world, I think it's very important to really think about the overall ecosystem we are in. And that's why I also think this approach of Origami Labs is very good, to really understand the ecosystem and try to build early on contact, really identify who is around, what kind of solutions they are working on, because I think we don't have this problem of not sufficient tools. I think we have more a challenge of like bringing those existing tools maybe to work in a better way together. So, if you would like to really polarize it, you can like ask these questions if scholarly communication and therefore scientists and research are a little bit like torn apart between big monopolies of publishing houses and the democratization of scientific publishing approaches, which the symptoms of this situation are described quite broadly, which are called the reproducibility crisis, these data silos, the topic of fake science, steep paywalls, and also broken peer review have been like heavily debated within research communities. One of those actors in this field is, of course, also scientific libraries. So they have also been providing stewardship, but also platforms and tools, repositories for publishing articles, but also more recently also publishing data related to publications. This is where ETH Library Lab is at current state, and maybe other for fields where we are providing service in. Like one would be the overall topic of research services, where you can find a lot of like support, stewardship, but also practical support alongside all topics of e-publishing. Scientific e-publishing, also on the topic of research data, which includes like data management, stewardship, data curation, and data archiving, but also the topics of knowledge management and accessing scientific resources. Another huge topic, which I think is also something that might be even staying in the future, and maybe not so much change, is the topic of learning environments. I heard like quite a lot of students which are like after years of home working, really craving to go to the library, to some space else to have a place where they can learn and focus dedicatedly on their work. But when talking about learning environment, this is definitely not only the place or the physical space, it's also the digital and the social space. And when these three components are coming together, as you could see it also here on the picture, this is a course that is provided by ETH Library itself on research data management. Then this is, I think, the best possible way of learning. We, of course, also lend books, and a lot of the time also ebooks. This is a whole topic of itself, and a huge debate. Will we have books in the future or not? I don't have an answer to that, to be honest. But for the moment, I think there are also, in parts, good reasons to still lend books, because sometimes these books are not available in digital copies, or also they are not accessible in digital copies for people outside universities. So for the overall society then. And the fourth part, which is also quite strong at ETH Library Lab, is the topic of cultural and scientific heritage preservation. Where we have archives and collections that are safeguard collections like the Thomas Mann archive, the graphical collection of ETH Zürich, or Max Frisch archive. So besides all the things that are already done in the library and that are like constantly developed further, there was also this idea that we need sort of a unit that takes care of those kind of ideas, which are a little bit far out or even don't seem to have a very strong connection to scientific libraries at first place, but might lead to ideas on how to provide services to scientists and research in the future. And this is how actually ETH Library Lab came to existence, and this is what our lab is about. Having projects that help us to think and also act on ideas that might give us an idea of future services. So in this way, our mission is to stimulate transformative innovation through investigating and advancing the required foundation for the efficient and effective use of scientific data, information, and knowledge. Or in other words, and I think OrigamiLab's team could also sign this, we love the free flow of knowledge. We see ourselves as operating at the intersection between science research and information and knowledge society and the public service. And we're not only operating at this intersection, but really trying actively to build bridges between those. One of the core concepts of our lab is our Innovator Fellowship Program, which is open to thinkers and doers who have ideas that can reshape workflows and information environments for the future of science. So Innovator Fellows joining our lab, they are usually bringing their own idea to a prototype level, or they help bringing an existing idea to prototype level. So far, we have granted 16 fellowships at ETH Library Lab. We've facilitated 13 projects, and the fellows have come out of 9 scientific disciplines. Some are not so closely related to science, so that's why this is in brackets. And here, to give you a little bit of an idea, you see some of the former fellows. Also, Barry Sunderland has been one of our former fellows. And with this, I would like to hand over to Barry, I think just in time, because I'm having a cough now.
Yeah, thanks, Maximiliane. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. No, sorry. Yeah. Is it? Mm-hmm. I will very.
No, we lost Barry completely.
One is coughing, one is frozen. That's perfect.
Yeah. Actually, you broke the last straw.
There he is, finally back again.
I hit my power button while trying to set my phone up. I think hopefully I'll just press on. It should be okay. Yeah. Sorry. I'm not seeing I'm presenting. Yeah, give me 1 second then if you want to do this.
Take your time.
Okay.
Mm. No worries, it's good advice.
Okay.
For a learning curve.
So sorry for the. Yeah, I'm set up and recording. So All right, thanks. So yeah, I'm going to be very happy to connect some of the trends and topics and challenges that Maximiliane highlighted to the work that we're doing at the Library Lab. It's to kind of summarize some of the points that Maximiliane touched on, and how we investigate these is through our fellowship program, which is a very diverse set of different projects, which are investigated by our academic guests, by our fellows for usually 3 to 9 months, and by working on these projects that are related to issues for the library, we can further our knowledge about these topics and participate in the debate around these issues. But also we get the chance to explore and learn about the technology that underlies these very diverse topics, and get in a hands-on kind of learn by doing way. So I'll highlight some of them very quickly. We won't have that much time to add information, but basically we're dealing with the increased demand for data, and we need to have projects that can deal with that and better ways to find and access data. Because you're generating more data, we need to be able to process it faster and navigate it better. This is kind of indexed it is linked closely probably to your last NanoCon presentation. Will be an interesting project, and we're trying to explore alternate ways of entering into this information. We also have many topics that are exploring the future of scholarly communication and publication, and spreading awareness and improving education using the data that we have. And of course, AI is basically used almost everywhere now, and is permeating all the disciplines. For libraries, natural language processing is very obvious a choice, where we have a vast abundance of really rich text data that could be used to draw out new insights. But we also have many image archives as well, where we could benefit from tagging and classification and things. Also, the library's role as kind of a trusted institution would lend itself well to providing data sets, hosting them, something we're already well versed in, but something that we could do better in terms of facilitating machine learning and the changing ways that researchers are using data. So all of this data and machine learning has to run somewhere, running in data centers that are all cooled by water in the ocean. So to take an unexpected turn, we'll turn to the ocean with our project from Marie Grismar, which is called Beneath the Sea. And I think this is a fantastic example of one of our projects, because it's not immediately obvious, but it's a really good opportunity to investigate technology that we were interested in, which is kind of the use of 3D printing and what technologies and data is required for it, but apply it to something that has a real social good, and can really spread awareness and better inform people about a topic as well. So I think Mary certainly says it better than I do, so hopefully I can play a quick video clip that you can enjoy.
We probably can't hear it.
Okay. Is it playing any sound? No?
Without sound.
Without sound? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll speak over it.
You have to narrate it now.
Yes. So for her project, she was investigating the use of clay as a medium for creating artificial coral reefs. So clay is a very interesting material that is naturally occurring, and that is commonly used by artists and is present in one of our material archives. So she worked together in kind of a transdisciplinary team to study the fabrication processes that are possible to use for clay with 3D printing, and exploring all of the different parameters that go into that, which are vast, and also also the fluid flow around the form of this. So not just using the technique, but what form actually works best for creating artificial reefs, which can be used to rehabilitate corals and provide a place for them to grow. So for that, she was working with the environmental fluid dynamics group at ETH to get some expertise on that. And it's been a really fantastic project that has continued on under the name of Reefs, if you want to look at that. So as I mentioned, the materials clay were actually that Marie was working on. They were added to one of our archives, which is the material archive at ZHDK. And this archive is kind of a big inspiration for another one of our projects, which is Material Reality Lab by Nadia and Mario, who are artists and game designers. And their project is providing new ways to access knowledge and information from the physical samples that are in the material archive. So their project is providing new entry points for people to explore these materials. They're looking at virtual reality or augmented reality applications, interactive card games, and kind of curiosity-led interactive games for people to explore materials and navigate the different issues surrounding them. It's a really fascinating project because the team has an emphasis on ideation, curiosity, exploration, and they're really good at prototyping quickly and trying out many new ideas. So it provides a lot of inspiration for us and our other projects. So moving from more from the physical infrastructures to the more digital infrastructures, where one of our fellows, Anirudh, is working on a customizable citizen science platform, which is another collaboration between institutes in New York, Paris, and here in Zurich. And the concept here is to try and to provide a platform that connects researchers and communities who want to work on societal challenges that they're interested in. So this is a way for libraries to be providers of also more digital infrastructure. So the app allows people to build their own questionnaires and studies without using any programming, and they can spread this within their community and collect observations, engage in community science, and derive new insights from this material. It'll have a wide variety of different data collection methods, which can make it a very rich, very useful survey tool, but that should also be really easy to use. And we'll connect this with this data collection with the crowdsourcing tools at Citizen Science Center Zurich, and to help people process this data afterwards. So then, even more digital, we're finally going to mention AI properly, which is my project that I worked on as a fellow, called Biodex. And this project worked on improving the workflows in collections, so in natural history collections. So you can see below, these are some images from the entomological collection here in Zurich. And there's hundreds of thousands of specimens here and many millions across the world, where very great lengths and a lot of time is invested in categorizing these and grouping them. And these records then are used very often for researching and modeling climate change and changes in biodiversity. So they're very valuable historical records. But the process to get to this stage is very demanding, of course. So we looked at creating an app that would help facilitate this better. So from the digitize records, which were created over the last couple of years, we created a machine learning data set by cropping out the butterflies. And from this, we're able to train a classification network, a CNN. And the interesting thing is that we also injected hierarchical information into this model. So we're combining usually you just have the label image interaction, but we're injecting hierarchical information into how the model's learning as well. So this is improving its accuracy. We developed the app and the kind of full stack service that supports the app, and we're able to release this release this as a free app for iOS and Android. So tools that are have broad use cases, but we've picked something very specific and tailored it to the needs of collections and archives. So very, very relevant to libraries. Another project that is born out of this and kind of this kind of led or Biodex has kind of grown from this is open image search. And here we're talking about dealing with the increasing amounts of data that's available. It's out there, but it's often siloed and difficult to access or find the right data. So we've created an alternative method through like a reverse image search or image retrieval application for art historians to find the relevant data that they need. So instead of creating a new platform, we're focusing on linking to the supplementary information. So we're more of a facilitator. And by joining the platform, you're kind of incentivized to share your data and contribute. And it was a very pleasing project to work on. By working on progressive web apps, allowed us to move very quickly and release something online that people can interact with. And working with the Graphische Sammlung in the library here in ETH, they're kind of guiding us on the specific needs that they have there. So a very quick background.
Barry, just to remind you, we ran out of time, so we'll give you 1 more minute.
A very quick background on the process behind this. Victor is kind of mentioning people are interested in slightly more technical things. What we do is pass in an input image to the convolutional neural network and extract specific features out of here. And using these features, we can create basically a vector and compare this to images in our database. So by comparing this input images to the record that we already have, we can find the most relevant, the most similar images, and return this along with the metadata to the artist. So this has many interesting use cases that we're exploring, obviously enabling less experienced archivists to contribute to the process. But also like finding works from a series and other tools for research that we're kind of exploring more. So, all of these projects are very exciting, very diverse, but trying to bring it back to how does it contribute to innovation inside the library. And through this, we're implementing our kind of ethos that we've adopted, that innovation is both idea and implementation. And that you need to combine both to have something truly innovative. And we've seen, kind of from our experience, really good results from providing interaction over just purely explanation. So by demonstrating the potential value added, allowing people to test out tools, and they're much more interested, more excited, and inspired kind of by the possible further use cases. Immediately it sparks like new things they could apply. And fosters more regular exchange between, us as a kind of innovation lab and the core library, which is really important to have this constant exchange. So, as I said, exchange, I think and feedback is one of the most important things. So, I'm really looking forward to having some questions after this, and we're always open to discussing any of our projects in more detail. And discussing any new ideas or applications that you have an interest in. So with that, I'll hand back to Victor.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Maximiliane. Thank you very much, Barry.
Yes, you can invite any questions. I had to go a little bit quickly, but we still have some time for some debate.
I'm not sure if Barry can hear us. Huh? Barry, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, good. All right. Awesome. We would actually transition right away and not waste any time into the interview segment. Today, the interview segment will be hosted by Christina, who we have with us. And basically, we'll then afterwards open up. And now a bit running out of time, right? Hopefully, we can keep the interview to 5 to 6 minutes. And then we open up to a few questions. And whoever can stay a bit longer, if there's really something interesting as a topic for you, we can continue the session, but we will aim to close at past, right? So the stage is yours, Christina. Thank you very much, and looking forward to hearing the interview.
Yes, so Patrick, you don't have to worry. My camera is on. Then first of all, thank you, Victor, and everyone else for giving me this chance. And Maximilian and Barry, thank you very much for this very, very interesting topic and the presentation. For maybe a start question, I think for everyone who was joining a little bit later, Maximilian, maybe you can just point out what is the most important reason for you why you want to change something in the segment of the libraries.
That is a very good question. I think there are a lot of reasons. I think libraries, scientific libraries, as we have them today, it's quite obvious that we are not able to serve the needs that are currently developing in all aspects in scientific research. And I think one motivation that keeps us going every day is that we really would like to contribute to accelerating this innovation processes inside scientific libraries. Because we think in this market, we have shown you it is very important to have a very good balance between players from different fields. I think we need, of course, also publishing houses. I think we need startups, but I think we should also have players from the public sector joining this overall discussion and also contributing, because I think we come with a very different perspective. And I think we also come with a very different approach of time. As I have showed you, I think stability and credibility is something that is widely attributed to libraries. And I think in order to develop good futures, we also need to be aware of maybe historic ways of development, network dependencies maybe that lead to certain developments, and maybe also sometimes critical think about certain aspects. So I think certainly it is good to have these different players, and I would like to see scientific libraries being very strong players here that can really give impulses into this overall discussion and really also develop into partners of science and research. Okay, thank you. Maybe what would be also very interesting for me, maybe from the perspective of Barry, if you could describe in a couple of sentences, because I'm asking you because you're more from the technical side, it's very curious, how would your dream library of the future look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think libraries are very well poised, that they have incredibly rich, diverse data that's incredibly interesting to work with. That's kind of the appeal for me. And I think the work that we can do is to make this more accessible and easy to work with. So not just putting it online, but really understanding how people are working with this and making it very easy for them to combine different data sets in new ways and create new research very quickly. That would be the dream.
Okay, so maybe also in this topic to stay, maybe for Maximilian, do you think that libraries should take themselves in feeling responsible to not only have books and audios and video material, but also to have initiative in collecting the data so that you have actually data where scientists can work with? So we don't have, when we compare to the US, we don't really have data that we have access to. Do you think that this is a topic? Because people trust libraries more probably than anyone else.
Thank you very much for this question. I think it's a very important one. Currently, we are already providing data services, but these services are more a little bit related to data archiving because as scientists publish scientific articles, and there are certain regulations for open access publishing. There's also certain regulatory aspects that demand researchers to also openly publish the data sets behind their research. And this is something that libraries already take care of and also provide data stewardship and also provide stewardship regarding data management plans that are needed for actually applying to scientific grants. But I would see actually, I would like to see libraries being even more like pushing more towards this direction of also taking care of active data that is not archived, that is still in use and is still evolving over time. So I think this is a very crucial role that is now like in the focus of scientific libraries currently. And I think this is the development that currently takes place.
Thank you very much for this insight on this topic. Victor, I think I will ask one more question. I have a tons, you can imagine. Of course, also for Barry, because this was very interesting for the perspective for my master's as well. But luckily we have the email. So, but one of the last questions I was interested into, you mentioned about this education. So I'm wondering if you also plan to, in of course, anonymized way, look which kind of books or topics your students actually are reading, so that you can much easily predict, okay, which new books do we have to order, or which kind of publications do we now to ask for access. So because this can also be predicted. Is something like this in plan?
I don't know, Maximiliane can speak to the plans. It's an interesting topic. Of everything is based on recommender systems. Basically now, you could have like Netflix equivalent for libraries. I've been thinking about it. I'm not sure of plans to go this detailed. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a topic that is quite interesting, but I think there are like a little bit like two hearts pumping in our breast, because I think libraries are maybe one of the places which is not like craving behavioral data of its user. So with this, it's a refuge for people to just move as they want to and not being observed in all their actions. And I think that is maybe also a little bit of a USP of us. And we should think thoroughly about how we deal with this USP, if we really would like to move in this direction or not. Because a topic we increasingly see also in the publishers area is this topic of science tracking, which I think is like becoming increasingly concerning, and is putting researchers in connection with the actual amount of grant money they are able to acquire and all these kind of things. And I think we are in environments where everybody is tracked quite heavily. So this is something that is, of course, a topic of awareness in libraries, but librarians are very hesitant to really go down the line because they are quite critical regarding this development, to be honest.
All right.
Thank you very much. And Victor, you can, I think, open now the Q&A for everyone else.
I think you just did. Thank you, Christina, for the great interview. I think the questions have been very good, well prepared. Thank you for that. We can open up a Q&A session. If there are questions, feel free to ask. We have a few questions here on the chat. Is there anyone from the group who would like to follow up on something specific?
I just have a quick question. Barry, could you share the last slide with the emails again for the ask and question session so that we can see it, because it was quite fast.
It was very fast. We can share them after the event. Maybe it's easy.
Yeah, we will share everything.
Yeah.
We just need the last part of the presentation, Barry, because so far we just have the other half. Yes, we will share everything to the people that have signed up over the meetup page, NanoCon, or our own landing page for the event. So if you haven't done yet, just join the group there, and then we can send out the presentation in the attachment. So either meetup.com, origamilab, or on our website, you find always the event page. We will share it with you. Yeah, and Alexander just shared this here. Thank you, Alex. Yeah. Other questions? Alexandra, I think, was asking here, and we heard this question before the event even, how is it possible to become a fellow? Is it open only for students at the ETH? Maybe also Christian pointed out, ETH is a university in Zurich, one of the leading ones for technical topics. If you know a guy called Einstein, I think he was there for some time. Yeah, so look it up, quite a great place. So is it possible, Barry and Maximilian, just to join you as a fellow? How does it work?
Yes, it is possible to join us, and you don't have to be a student of ETH Zurich, and you don't have to be even be currently in Switzerland. We are an international fellowship, or we offer an international fellowship program, but the boundary condition is that it is in place. As we have experienced in the last year, it's extremely difficult to do the work we are doing in full remote mode. So fellows at our lab usually come to work with us here in Zurich, or at least part of the week. And usually we have open calls twice a year, where we invite people to apply with their project ideas. But we are also very, very open to be contacted in between. If you have a project idea or maybe something you would like to discuss, then that could be further expanded into a project or even project collaboration between institutions, please get in touch. We are more than happy to discuss these things.
Amazing. It's pretty actually different.
It's awesome.
Place.
It's just awesome.
I have too many ideas already. Okay.
I think there is someone who wants to ask a question, right, Gemma?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, hi, everyone. Thanks for a great presentation and such a good initiative. I'm just curious about the fellowship program, whether you are interested in certain topics, maybe because you don't have any fellows yet for this, or whether you try to select fellows at the same time that work in similar projects to like create synergies among them, or I'm just curious, out of curiosity.
So usually we tend to keep the scope of the projects quite open. So basically they need to be somehow and notably be connected to this overall process of knowledge creation and dissemination. Of course, there are some topics that have a more stronger focus currently, but we are also open to not so much technology-related projects. So projects that are also looking more into the field of like maybe creating best practices in certain environments, or also exploring a topic deeper that is of specific concern, for instance, around scholarly communication. So if you have something in mind where you're not sure if that would be a fit, maybe you can also get in touch with us later, and we would be happy to discuss this. Yeah. But generally, we would like to keep it open also because we make this experience when we facilitate the project and really support the fellows. We have the situation that once you start your research and you get exposed to real world people explaining their needs, there's always this need of pivoting and reorientate because your first assumption might not have been the right one.
Okay, great, thanks.
Amazing. That's a really good question. Thank you, Gemma. Thanks a lot. By the way, Gemma is in Portugal, I believe, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Spain.
Oh, Spain, sorry. I was about to say it's nearby, right?
Yeah, I saw it's Spain, not Portugal.
Awesome. Yeah, we will take one more question if there's one. Ruud from Netherlands. Ruud, you have so many ideas. You want to ask maybe something? We're not recording anymore. We're not going to publish the questions just in case. All right.
Okay. I'll just say one thing. I work at the research library, but there's not too much space for creative ideas. So I'm thinking of how to open it up. And most of that is because, we're part of a larger organization with all its bureaucracy and limitations in money, people, etc. But I was just wondering if maybe someone has an idea for, get some more space for creativity.
Well, I think that's a very hard question. And I've all the points you mentioned sound familiar to us. So I think the art is making it looking easy to the outside. The tough work happens behind the curtains. But yes, we have this sort of like friction also as well, because you have established processes and organizational setups. And also initiative like ours is, I think, something that sometimes also can maybe create a little bit of pushback inside the home organization. I think this is something usual to be observed in the context of innovation labs across all organizations, regardless of if they are in the public sector or in the corporate sector. And I think this is just part of the job description. I think this is part of this process of driving organization and also cultural transformation forward. It's a tough process that is very communication intensive. But I think it's actually something that needs to be understood as part of the role of such an initiative, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess keeping in touch and sharing knowledge is already, and lessons learned especially, is already probably then that could lead to positive outcomes, since those things are not found solved in a day, right? It's more of a trying and learning, especially all the topics that Maximiliane spoke today about. They're new to most people, right, in those organizations. So it's also a change process, right? You have to evangelize on this, show practicality, and just stay on it, right? Most of the time, it's really just not showing that you're persistent or not giving up on this, right? And looking for allies, right? Looking for allies is very important. People that support it, and really, it's an ambassadorship, right? It's change management. So it's a hard topic, right? People normally don't want to change, right? It's kind of in the nature, right? I would close the Q&A now. Sorry for running over by 10 minutes. I'm blown away. Even if we had some difficulties, I think it's an amazing session today. We're going to publish the recording. We're going to collect certain snippets that we think might be interesting as the short clips. We're going to distribute all the contact details. Reach out to us. We have a Slack channel. We have a community portal, but Slack is the easiest, right? You can also email us. And the conversation doesn't have to stop here, right? You can join the Slack groups. We can talk there. There's no expectations towards you showing up, right? You can just be there and read what's going on and just benefit from it. That's the whole point of origamilab, and also, I believe, ETH Library Lab as well. Collect what you need, take it with you. We operate based on open knowledge and open source principles, so it's meant to be reused, right? So join in the conversation, bring topics, bring ideas, and looking forward to the next event and keeping in touch with everyone.
Thank you very much for having us. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
It's an honor.
And talk to you soon.
Yeah, hopefully. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye all.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.